Good evening. We're back with some more Lord of the Rings LCG, and tonight is Breaking of the Fellowship on Nightmare difficulty. This is a long quest, not a very difficult quest. Mostly just about not getting too many enemies stacked up and getting locked out of questing in the early going. And having enough combat power to take out whatever enemies do stack up. Sarngibir can represent a challenge to navigate, as is the case in this playthrough. Get Ethir's Swordsman out. It's a pretty decent start with a couple of Knights of the Swan and an Ethir's Swordsman. A couple of guys are going to go to waste. Can use Good Harvest to get out the Hunter of Lamedon. And we'll let the Errand-rider and the Envoy of Pelargir and a copy of Faramir go. So I'm gonna quest with everyone. And we'll have 5 against, so make some progress. Have to either reveal another encounter card or take an immediate attack. I'll choose the immediate attack. So make half the progress we need. Also got to clear Sarngibir and the Argonath to move on past phase 1. So in this case we can get out Faramir and the Knight of the Swan, the third one. And we'll be set up for combat, well, at least offensive. Not much defense, but Faramir is going to be a very good card in this one. It's very important not to get overwhelmed by more threat you can deal with in round 1. More threat than you can deal with. So there, Hunting the Ring is going to go on the quest. It's going to add threat at the end of each round if there's enemies in the staging area. And the Isengard Archer is going to deal 2 damage to a character. And he's going to be dealing archery damage. I should not have put that damage on Faramir. I wasn't thinking about Sarngibir. And at this point I don't have an Anfalas Herdsman, which means all my Outlands allies are 1 HP, which is bad for Sarngibir. It means I don't really have the willpower to clear it without losing something I really don't want to lose. So I'm going to quest very precisely to make sure that I don't clear it until I get a Anfalas Herdsman, at least one. That's going to be adding threat at the end of every round then for the enemies in the staging area and risking the enemies building up. And it's a location which prevents progress from being placed on the quest. Well, more than 4 progress. I do take a threat for failing to quest successfully, and then I remember that I should have added 2 at the end of the last round. So, on to the next round. Still just trying to not die until I get an Anfalas Herdsman. And I'll play whatever cards I draw in the meantime. Don't really need Captain's Wisdom here. I could use it. It's not like I'm going to be engaging any enemies. So once again, going to quest precisely so that I don't clear Sarngibir, which would kill a bunch of my Outlands allies. So I take no threat, but make no progress, which is fine. And just gonna deal with the archery damage, deal with the threat at the end of the round. And there's an Anfalas Herdsman, so now I can clear Sarngibir without losing everyone. And I've got the willpower to deal with all this threat in the staging area. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 against. So gonna quest for a lot. But not with Faramir because I don't want to lose him. So I'm gonna play around that. And it's another location. And I remember the threat. So Sarngabir gone. It's gonna be, that should have gone to the victory display, not the discard pile. That just makes things a little harder on myself a little later. And everybody's taking a lot of damage. For Sarngabir, for archery. Threats building up too. But this round I'll move on to phase 2. So I'm just going to count up how much I need to quest for here. Want to keep some guys in reserve to deal with whatever enemies that I'll have to engage once phase 1 is completed, because then the counter costs of the enemy are going to go to 0. And it's going to be a Doomed 2 Surge. And an additional 2 archery, so that's inconvenient. But at least it's not another enemy, I guess. So that'll clear the Argonath. And we'll be moving on to phase 2. Phase 2 is going to deactivate the Ring Bearer. And I skipped the travel phase, unfortunately. I'd like to get that location that limits your progress each round out of the way, but oh well. So 4 locations remaining in the staging area. It could have been a lot worse. If it was all enemies, that would be tough. I do have 4 archery to deal with. So everybody is looking pretty wounded. And I'm going to put these attacks on chump blockers. And I do have the damage to take out both of these enemies with ease. This shadow card forces me to deal 2 damage to an ally, which is going to kill my Envoy of Pelargir. So no problem with the combat damage. I have more than enough. Even with the bonus from the location in the staging area. And then at the end of the refresh phase, we need to shuffle Frodo's Choice into the discard pile. The discard pile goes to the bottom of the deck. Bottom of the encounter deck. And then in phase 3, instead of questing progress, we discard cards from the encounter deck, similar to the first quest of the Hobbit Saga, until we find Frodo's Choice in the discard pile. Sarngabir should be in the staging area, but the only, or not staging area, should be in the victory display, but the only effect that's going to have on the game is to make things slightly more difficult for me. And then phase 2 is going to get discarded, and a random phase 3 will be up. And it's Guard the Hobbits. So if the total threat were low, then I would have to reveal cards, but it is not. And this phase 3 has the bonus of readying my heroes after I quest successfully. So add to the board a little bit. And I'll just be, well, I can only really make, according to the river card, I can, on the far left, I can only make 4 progress per round. I wasn't really sure if that applied to this quest stage, since I'm not actually making progress and discarding cards. But I figure it probably does, so I'm just gonna play as if I can only make 4 progress on the quest this round, or discard 4 cards this round, and then I'll clear the location next round and move through phase 3 then. There we go. An archer and another archer, so that's going to deal 2 damage to a character, and I don't know that I have anyone who can take that damage. I guess Hirluin can. With only 1 Anfalas Herdsman out, I don't have a lot of hit points to spare. Gonna have to deal with 3 archery as well. I do discard 4 cards from the encounter deck. And then I can move to Langflood River. And I actually have to deal with 5 archery damage here, counting the location in the staging area. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 dead, and I should have 2 more to deal. Which would likely take out my Hunter of Lamedons. That's where I would have put that archery damage. Had I realized I needed to deal it. But I still have enough combat power to take down the archers. And just need to quest. So had I discarded the Hunter of Lamedons, I simply would have grabbed Men of the West here and retrieved them and played them. Likely drawing more cards in the process, so not really any effect on the game there for getting that archery damage, given the board state, the large amount of resources, and the presence of 2 Men of the Wests in my deck in the final 5 cards. If there hadn't been a Men of the West in there, could have affected the game. So I'm going to quest pretty hard here. And that's going to add 1 archery for each ally at this stage. So I'm going to have a total of like 15 archery to deal out this round. But with 3 Anfalas Herdsmen, that's doable. I really only need 2 Anfalas Herdsmen in order to deal with it. So if I'd had to use the Heed the Dream on grabbing Men of the West, then I would have used the secondary function of Heed the Dream on a Anfalas Herdsman, which I didn't actually use because I didn't feel that I needed it. But if I had discarded the Hunters of Lamedon, I could have used that for the Anfalas Herdsman, and certainly would have, as it was quite important at this point in the game to get out the Anfalas Herdsman as quickly as I could. They were pretty low down in the deck, and they were needed to deal with all this archery. So Frodo's Choice is out, and that's going to move us into phase 4. Which is going to add the Parth Galen to the staging area. And I got to deal with 15 archery. I'm just going to go ahead and move to Parth Galen, which brings an enemy into play, added to the staging area. I'll just grab an Uruk-hai Hunter. His when revealed effect isn't going to go off because he was added and not revealed. So, 15 damage. Just put it wherever I can, and with the Anfalas Herdsman, that's no problem. I could just basically deal 1 damage to each ally. As long as I had 2 of them, it wasn't going to be a problem. With 3, it's definitely no problem. They all have HP to spare, actually, which is nice. So next round we'll end the game, barring something crazy happening. Put the attack on Hirluin, who's currently at 7 HP. Deal 2 damage to an ally. That's going to kill one of them. No problem. That actually made things a little bit harder. Well, I kind of wish I'd been able to replay that Hunter of Lamedon earlier, because he wouldn't have died from that, but oh well, no problem. You get Forlong again, and check and see what I need to get back with this Men of the West. And the last card in the deck looks like it's a Men of the West, the last one. So if I lose any allies this round, I can get them back again next round with all the resources I have. So everybody got pretty banged up, but with Outlands, you've got a lot of HP to give. So one of the main challenges of this quest is archery damage, and that is mitigated quite a bit by the Outlands archetype with the Anfalas Herdsman. Do need to reveal 2 encounter cards this round. And it's Seed of Seeing. So I haven't realized I need to reveal 1 more card yet, but there it is. It's a Doom 2. Puts me at 47. Can't trigger actions or responses, no problem. And that's going to end the game. So it could have been disastrous early due to not having any Anfalas Herdsman, because I had to linger on phase 1 before I could clear Sarn-Gabir, and if a bunch of enemies had come instead of locations, that could have been a big problem. As it was, my allies all got pretty damaged, but, you know, those locations being in the staging area didn't really end up mattering too much. They're just minor inconveniences. And with a ton of willpower and a ton of places to put archery damage, after we cleared the first stage of the quest, the outcome wasn't really in doubt. So, thanks for watching.